editing my videos, I noticed that either I didn't record it or I accidentally deleted how to make this extension and hood that goes on the top. Kind of a big oversight because this is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to use some scrap fabric I have laying around from another project and put one together so that you can at least see how it's constructed. That'll come up next. So I have a scrap of material here. It's about 25 inches wide and about 10 inches across. It's obviously just a scrap, it's kind of odd shaped, but this should work good enough to show you how this is done. I also made a template. This represents half of the hood. I'm going to set it on here at about the center. Now I want some extra space around it for stitching, so I'm just going to mark this on both sides. This is going to be kind of approximate because, as I said, I'm just doing this to show you how it's done. So I'm going to cut that out, leaving a little bit extra. I would be a lot more precise if this was being made for real. So that's the way I'm going to go. Line this up. You may want to pin this if you're doing any cutting like this because it's pretty easy for your cuts to go off and get a little crazy. High school and college friend would say unsharp. Okay, so now I have two pieces. Most important thing to remember, fold these ends over twice, all four of them, stitch them up before you start assembling. So I'm going to do that and you'll see what that looks like. Okay, I have on all four ends rolled this seam and stitched it down. That's important because this is a stress area. Now I'm going to pin this up and prepare for stitching around the top. So I'm going to kind of roll this with my fingers. You know, you could take it to a ironing board and iron this so that it's flat. I want the bottom edge to be pretty close together. And I'll throw a couple more pins in there. I've got this together. Looks okay. I need to leave a good ½ inch here for that channel. So when you stitch, don't make it too close. It's better if it's a little bit too wide than if it's too tight. So as usual, I'm going to set this up and start with a back stitch. Okay, I'm going around the top and created the channel at the So with this stitched, I now have a channel that I can use for the top drawstring that will go through there and extend out on the, or you can put the Climashield in and stitch it, and I think advocate for that. I did it the other way on the bag and it was a little bit challenging. So basically all you're going to do is fold these in, fold both of them in, make it even. Down the length like that, and then pin it and stitch that down with the Climashield inside. Now you may need to put a small stitch here, for example, to hold the Climashield in place, and maybe another small one on each end, maybe an inch or so, a couple of stitches over. But that will get you what you need to attach it along this finished edge to your bag. Now, when you do this stitching, you don't really need to do a very fine stitch. It can be 8 per inch because you're going to stitch over it again when you attach to the bag. Make sure that you close up the end as well, but do not stitch over your tube. That would be a problem. So be careful to only stitch this together below the tube you've made so that this edge and all of this are closed. And there you are. Completed the extension that's going to go on the bottom side top, so around the back of my head and a little bit on the sides. I'd like to have made it bigger, but I literally am out of Climashield, and in making this I had to use 6 pieces. So I think it'll stay together. I've stitched it in 3 places across the chunks, so I'm not worried about it, but it would have been nice to make it a little bigger. So as it is, there's 2 or 3 layers depending on where you're at in this. And I've got it pinned onto the top. I'm going to stitch it on, and then I'll be putting the shoestring through as a drawstring. And that will be a time for a little bit of a test. I'm going to start with a back stitch. Okay, next step, to get the shoestring through here. And to do that, start with a nice big safety pin. And go in here and run it in toward the plastic end. Close it up. And then you just end up feeding it through. I could see what I was doing here, just to go in. There we go. Don't know why that was so hard. And then just feed the little plastic thing in with it. Now what you're doing is kind of an inchworm. Push it in a ways, and pull the fabric back. Push it in, fabric back. You do that all the way across. An inch or 2 at a time. It doesn't take that long. I'm about halfway now. And about another couple inches, and should be able to make this come out the other side. And there it is. Okay, excellent. So as you can see, there's quite a bit left. Even it up approximately, get it about the same. Now the idea is that, you know, when this is anchored, I can have it either in the center right here, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to take this pin, push it through, and catch that shoestring, so that when I draw this up, you'll see it does that and creates a little hood. I think this just might work out great. So I'm going to test this out on the floor and see if, in fact, while the bag is on me, if it snugs up around my head. Hey, I tested this out. It works great. So the only thing that I don't like about it is this section here is kind of loose and puffed out. And if you want this to be really warm, you need to have that wrap around too. So I'm going to make a couple of tubes. These will be folded over like that and stitched very securely, turn inside out, or stitched inside out, and then I'll turn them right side out and attach them, and I'll run another piece of shoestring through each. So that other shoestring I'm going to cut in half. But before I get to that, something that I seem to forget a lot. When I'm making a tube, the first thing that I should do is fold over the ends, like so, and stitch them down. Doesn't have to be a really tight stitch or a lot of stitches per inch, but you definitely want to do this, because if you don't, it's not going to have a finished edge when you're done. It's a pretty straightforward thing. I'm not even going to bother to pin it. I think I can probably do this like so. And I'll flip it around, trim off this excess thread. Seems like any of these projects where you're stitching small pieces, you waste a lot of thread. But I don't know how else to do this. Certainly can't hand stitch very well. So I'm going to drop this stitch size down just a little. And make sure that I'm getting it even. Okay. Crank it once or twice manually and then back it up. Okay. So now I have this nice finished end, and when it's turned around, that will be on the inside, and it'll not only be nicer looking, it won't unravel like this material tends to do on its edge, but also it'll be stronger, because that's the point at which, when that cord is pulled, most of the stress is going to land in this last inch or two. So I'll do that on all four ends, and then I'll stitch these into tube shape, turn them right side out, and stitch them on the bag. So I made 2 tubes that I'm going to attach in this area. So they'll be on here, like so. Probably an inch or so beyond where this one ends. And I'll put the half shoestring in there, stitch it down on this end so that when I pull, this will come up together and form a nice wrap around my neck and face. So that's the next step. Get to it. I have put on the tubes and put in the string. It is stitched down at the end. I also stitched the center on this one so that it will pull in like that from both sides. Got one on this side. The last thing to do is to put on these cable locks and tie a knot in the end. And that, my friends, will be the last thing I have to do. I get these online. I bought a great big bag of them. There it is. Big bag. It's got 2 types, little button ones, and then these bigger ones that can handle a little bit more cord. And you know, at night in your tent after a long day, you don't want to have to search for those things. You want them to be right there. And they will be. Okay. Thanks for watching.